All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. I am extremely excited and humbled and honored to be joined by somebody who I've been, I guess you could say, a silent fan of for quite some time. I went on Disclosure Tonight live stream a couple weeks ago, and I saw Tony, ArtisanTony, was in the live stream, and I said, "Oh my gosh, this would be great if we could set something up." So, without further ado, we have if I'm not mistaken, home builder, carpenter, also I guess you could say YouTuber for many years, ArtisanTony. Sir, how are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. It was a bit of a surprise. I'm used to doing the interviewing, so I haven't been interviewed before. So it should be interesting.
Oh wow,
Just
that's awesome. That's awesome that
yeah.
this is first time. I just wanted to mention as well quickly, Nills and Riel, if you guys wanted to say hi to everybody.
What up, everyone?
Yep. Hey, everybody. Super excited to hear it. And hey, it's an honor to be the first ones to get to ask you the questions. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be fun. It's going to be different for me for sure. So
Awesome.
I'm usually really nervous about like what I'm going to, my list of questions, and I got the show prep and all this stuff, and all I have to do is show up to this.
That's awesome. I'm so happy that you're more at ease in this case. So you've been around for quite some time with respects to following the sort of rabbit holes of the internet and things like that from the mid to late 90s, if I'm not mistaken. I saw you say on your channel once, and obviously leading up to today. So you have also interviewed people more than once. Lou Elizondo, fantastic conversation. You just had him on 2 or 3 days ago as of the day we're recording this. And what do you see with respects to people in general, before we get to the alien stuff and all that, in terms of the way people would, I guess you could say, behave, where people's heads were at back in the 90s compared to today? Do you see a big jump? And I ask just in general, whether it's politically, financially. Some people have told me, Dave, back in the day, times were simpler, things like that. Others have told me the opposite. What do you see the biggest things for people?
Well, I was born in 1962, and I remember the first exposure I remember to, UFOs. I'm still an old timer, so I call them UFOs. Was the show? The show was actually named UFO. It was a British show, and it came here after its life was over, I guess, in the UK, as reruns, or I guess that's what we would call them here. And I remember seeing that series and being so fascinated. And then I sort of had my own little experience when I was 12 and didn't know what it was, what happened. Very confused, about that. And then that kind of opened up my world to start to paying more attention to the whole, genre, I guess you'd say. So I have lived through several of these phases where it seems like, there's a huge interest from the public. And then politicians say, "Oh, we have to do something about this. We have to study it. We need congressional hearings." And I've been, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 of those phases over the last 50 years. I don't know. It seems like so. And I have gotten in trouble with some of the Generation Z by not being as excited about the new congressional office as they are, because I don't expect, honestly. I think the people who are involved have good intentions. I'm just not sure what we will get from it. So.
Well, people, I think one thing that a lot of people don't realize, if I could say, and I say this with the utmost respect to you, sir, is that you've been through these phases before, right? You've seen the phases of excitement over the years, right? Just because, as you said, you were born in 1962. Do you see a difference in this, if you want to call it, phase of excitement compared to previous ones in the past?
Well, the difference this time, obviously, is you have people like Lou involved. And you also have people who are, involved with the Galileo project, where I actually have done some volunteer work for the Galileo project. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that.
I did some CAD, some design. I'm a design build contractor, and I use, SketchUp. And a lot of my videos on YouTube are about SketchUp and design build.
Right.
And I volunteered, and I ended up working on I designed a portable FM transmitter tower that could be taken apart in pieces and put in a chest that we would build. I actually offered to fabricate it and send it to them. And I worked with several people there. I won't mention any names because I'm not sure I'm supposed to mention names, but
no problem.
Several people there, and that was my sort of little project. I finished up with them, I guess, a couple of months ago. And I guess what I meant to say was that the difference now is you have people like Avi Loeb, I can mention his name. There's 2 or 3 other people. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to mention. I guess they're on the website, so it's not top secret or anything. But recently, you have Eric Weinstein who joined. Yep. I guess the difference now is the mainstream scientists are starting to get more involved, which is, back when I was a teenager, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. It's fairly easy back in the day to keep people from talking about it, because if you did, you were really literally considered kooky. And I still have friends. I go on a lot of hangouts with my friends, and I've been on YouTube for 16 years. And so I have a lot of online friends that we hang out with, right? They poke me, they give me little jabs. Oh, Tony, how are aliens today? Or, what I mean? It's like funny little poking. And I'm thinking the whole time, come on, guys, come on now. It's time to come out of your shell a little bit and see that the difference is back in the day, people really felt nutty if they even mentioned it, right? So it wasn't that hard to keep people quiet, because it was faux pas. You didn't talk about it. If you did, you were kind of nutty. You wore the tinfoil hat. Right. You were a conspiracy theorist. You know what I mean? All that. They bundled all that into one, and you got labeled, and you still do to a certain extent today.
So if I was wearing this hat, for example, if this was around back in the 60s, 70s, I would have been ridiculed like crazy.
Oh yeah, they would have been. What's going on with you? What are you, a stoner? What's wrong with you?
As a matter,
what's going on?
They got you right there.
Yeah, sorry. that wasn't meant as a dig.
No.
They would use common terms that to basically put you in a category of not socially unacceptable behavior. Or what was perceived as such.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Please finish. Sorry.
No, when you were asking me what the difference is today. Today, it's a little more, easy to talk about. More people are coming out. It's just there seems to be a paradigm shift.
Right.
I don't know if you all feel it.
Yes.
Or, the military's making, statements. You would have never seen the military. And see, the military back then was sort of it acted as a group, right?
Right.
Now you have the Air Force is like the last holdout, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, all of the military services acted,
in
performed
unison,
like the Air Force does now. They wouldn't say a thing. So now you have the Navy coming out. And I don't know, there just seems to be more of an openness. You know what I mean? It's just an overall feel of change, really.
Right. Now, before we get to Nills and Riel, they have some questions for you as well. But if I'm not mistaken, and please correct me if I'm wrong, was it also from my understanding, I was always told, again, I wasn't around at the time, but the 60s, 70s, 80s, even up until the 1990s, it was much more easier to intimidate people, to keep them quiet. It was much easier for whether you were talking organized crime, whether government. Is this true or?
Yes, that's what I was trying to say, is that, the men in black or whoever they were didn't have to really threaten you much, because this is from my perception.
Sure.
Was that socially it was unacceptable, and it just wasn't as acceptable as it is today.
Right.
As a matter of fact, when I started YouTube in 2006, I probably would have never made videos about it.
Right.
the one thing a lot of people don't know about me is that I have been trained as a, licensed firearm instructor. And there are concerns in the firearms community that with the combination of red flag laws and this type of nutty thing, your
Right.
family, people who don't like you could use those types of, you know what I mean? So there's real
Yeah.
concerns out there, depending on the laws in your state. I think that's why, and honestly, part of what I've been trying to do in those hangouts is kind of bring an openness to it. And this is why they poke fun at me. I'll bring it up. I'll say, "Hey, I'm going to interview Lou on Saturday. You guys got to watch this." They're like, "No, I'm going to go out and shoot my AK." I don't have time for that mess. It's kind of a macho man thing. I don't have time for that stuff.
Do you think it has to do with this is no disrespect to your friends personally, I speak in general, but do you think this has to do with people just pure ego, not wanting to admit they were wrong about even the existence of these things?
I think it has more to do because when I talk to them privately, they all have their suspicions. They're like normal people. But I think it goes back to the public perception of no, they don't want to be seen as nutty. For what's a good word for nutty? I don't know. They don't want to be seen
heretic, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a real concern that you don't want nutty people running around with,
So if you took me, someone who usually smokes a little bit of weed before he goes to sleep, wears this hat most of the day, if you took me and dropped me in the 70s or 80s, I would stand out like a sore thumb.
Well, in your crowd, you would be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess in my day, that used to be called the straight crowd, like people who did nothing were the straight crowd, right?
Sure.
Now it means something else,
right.
Words have evolved over time.
Right.
But back then, if you said that guy's straight, that meant he didn't do drugs, he didn't smoke, he didn't drink.
Got you.
That's kind of what it meant. It didn't have anything to do with sexuality or anything.
Right.
So just like gay didn't have the word, if you said something was gay, you just meant it was silly. You didn't mean it wasn't. So actually, words themselves have evolved.
Right. Up until 10 years ago when I was in high school, even if someone had said, "Oh, that's so gay," that was not a jab or disrespect to homosexuals at all. That was just a figure of speech. Just, like you say, times change, right? And the people with the words and all that definitely do as well.
I have tried to, obviously, since I'm from that generation, I have changed. I'm considerate of those terms now. So I don't use them in that way anymore.
Right.
I don't, you know what I mean? I'm trying to be considerate of the current, meaning of the words. So.
Right. Absolutely. So Nills, I wanted to bring Nills and Riel in. They wanted to ask you some questions. So Nills, please.
Yes, so my question for you is it's kind of a two-parter, especially since you interviewed Lou so recently. So first part is, why do you think you managed to get him on? Is it maybe like you are, I want to say, you haven't gone full retard in that subject, right? Like some other people have. I'm not trying to name names or anything, but is might that be a reason why you were able to get him on? And
that's actually a really good question, and I've asked myself that many times, to be honest with you. And I have actually tried to analyze I've gone back and watched probably 50 Lou, Elizondo videos to try to figure out what his thing is with that. And there doesn't seem to be, the only thing I can see is that he's just trying to get the word out to, the common man, the common Joe, the everyday person.
Right.
And I do think there's some esoteric, I do have this theory, but it requires some sort of far out there. Sorry, I'm playing with my scale. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. If you'd like to share your theory, we cover all the far out there stuff.
The far out version of this is because here's what's happened to me twice with Lou. I have planned for days and weeks and hours in advance for him. And it doesn't matter what you do. If you get him on your show, just don't worry about it. Okay. no matter what you do. We even had an hour-long planning session with Chris and Alexei before he came in. And the minute he comes in, the whole feel of the show changes. He basically, in a nice way, he takes kind of charge of the feel and the direction. Okay. And the most boring shows you will find is where, and I made this mistake a little bit in my first interview, trying to corral that energy and guide it. The best thing to do with people like Lou is to let them take their energy and guide the interview. That's what I learned. That's what I did. If you notice, I didn't even say a word for probably 5 minutes into the last interview, mainly because he came in like 15 minutes earlier. We were talking and I realized it's late. We got to get started. And he and Chris were talking about F-16s. And I was just like, I'm going to start. I clicked the start button. And as soon as I thought they were maybe starting to get into some things that they might be talking about, that they wanted to make sure Lou knew he was live. Right. So I did interrupt and say, hey, I just want to let you all know we've started. And they thought it was kind of funny because, but here's the thing. Okay. Here's the esoteric thing. I think Lou, I don't know. I'm even afraid to go there.
Please, Tony.
I really am.
You're not gonna get laughed at. We bring.
I'm nutty.
No.
I think Lou.
Well, actually,
are you gonna say
I think
he's not human? Sorry. He's not human.
No, I think he's human. I just think that he has had some experience with remote viewing and extrasensory perception because it's spooky. I'm just going to tell you, it's spooky. I
asked.
There were some things I wanted to talk about, and he guided my mind around. Now, see, okay.
This is an open safe space, Tony.
Let me just, if I can just say, Tony, and I totally respect if there are conversations you've had off the record with him or others that you can't speak about. I respect.
It's not that it was off the record. It's that, and even Alexei, I almost wanted to get Alexei to come with me to this because we talked afterwards. Alexei had all these questions, right? And Chris, the format of the meeting was going to be 15 minutes of me, 30 minutes Alexei, 30 minutes Chris, and then I was going to close out with 15 minutes. And we each had our own thing, right? So in the first 1 minute, I knew that was out the window. So I said, okay. And I talked to Alexei afterwards. He also got the feeling in his thoughts that, I don't mean feelings, he got the thought that he just needed to go with the flow. All three of us decided in our heads just to go with the flow and not even mention the format of the show.
Tony, I will say with the utmost respect, I don't think you and your family or your partners or whoever you run the show with is crazy at all. I will tell you right now to sort of clear the air. Just a couple weeks ago, I think I saw what was you'd call a ghost push an orb of light into me. So just to give you some context, we on our channel, okay, we go like deep into that stuff. We're stuff that's even actually disgusting. But anyways, point being,
some people will say, well, you were just in the moment, and Lou's a pro and he knows how to guide and he does. All those things are true, but you just have to kind of experience it.
But there's physics behind what you went through.
Now, getting back, what I was trying to do is get back to your original question about the channels that Luke picks. It may be that he can predict, certain things easier with certain people. And he also knows that I'm a friendly person, right? He knows I'm not hostile and I'm not looking. When somebody comes on my channel, I show them the utmost respect. I don't care who it is.
Right.
You're not there to be grilled. It's not a trial. You're not on trial. I try to remain objective. I want, it's like you. I hope you'll come on my channel sometime. I'm not going to, it's just, it's a neutral, it's like Switzerland.
Yes.
It's a neutral territory.
Can I actually, I wanted to take that to my next question for you, Tony, actually. Sorry to interrupt you, but what I wanted to ask was essentially, you did a fantastic job, in my opinion, of asking Lou the tough questions in a respectful way, because there were certain things that when Lou brought up in the first interview you did with him about partnering with the UN and things like that, and you said, Lou, no disrespect, but you know what the folks on the internet, are going to say, oh, the UN and this and that. And I respect that, though, because you're pushing back respectfully.
Yeah, and I guess the second interview was planned to be more woo, and so that's why we didn't get into those questions. I was trying to figure out with the second interview how we could get away from the typical questions that people wanted to ask, which Lou's done so many of them, it's actually hard to do research on the actual questions,
Have you again, for the audience, this was not pre-planned or anything, so this is why I'm asking here and now. So please tell me, Tony, if you can't answer this, I totally respect that. Have you been told anything by anyone from the Galileo project, or maybe even Lou himself, that off the record, that I'm not asking for you to say, but would make people think, holy crap, like this is something out of a cartoon or a movie?
I think I understand the question. The Galileo project is pretty compartmentalized, okay. Unfortunately, and I felt like I was working with what's his name, Alex Delacroix, I think is his name, and Ezra. What's Ezra's last name? And I can mention them because they're listed on the website. They're like Caltech, MIT types,
right.
Mechanical, electrical engineer types. So one of the first questions I asked them was if I could make content for my YouTube channel. And they hesitated a bit. Well, as a matter of fact, they didn't answer me till the second email. And then they finally said I could. But I think, honestly, I think I might have strayed away from your question, but I'm just going through thoughts that come to me about the Galileo project.
Not a problem at all.
One of the problems I think I ran into was that I was I wanted to be, basically I would have done it. I basically did several live streams where I'm designing this thing on the fly, and I'm not sure. I think what Avi wants to do is he wants to be transparent. But as a scientist, he wants to filter that. He wants to filter out all the noise. This is speculation. I'm not speaking for Avi or the Galileo project. So I think what I was doing is a little bit fringy for them. And to get more work or to do more volunteer work with them the way I was working, I probably would have to change what I was doing, because I was getting into a lot of detail. And it's still on my channel. You can go see it,
Right. Do you think Avi knows that ETs exist? Do you think he's been briefed on, say, classified information, in your opinion? Just based on what you feel interacting?
My guess is yes.
Okay.
Especially when Lou joined and Chris Mellon.
Got you. Okay.
I don't think it may be that he hasn't been like read into,
sure,
the ultimate classified, above top secret, but I'm pretty sure that he knows enough to head in the right direction for what they're trying to do. I think he knows enough to get his equipment built that he wants to use to try to document it through science. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Now, just curious if you could answer, and it just as yes or no, and then we'll get to Riel. I know you had some questions for Tony, Riel. Were you told anything like, hey, I'm trying to watch my words here. Hey, Tony, I'm telling you this because, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, we're close. You're volunteering for the project, whatever, but you can't say this on your show or whatever. Have you been told anything that would make people?
No, I think they're nice people. They really are nice people to work with. I think they do it through means, like the last conversation I had with Ezra was that we're going in a different direction than what we had you working on. So I'll be honest with you, I probably I'm a design build contractor, right? So I want to build things, right? So I was designing this tower as if I was going to build it. Okay. And it was going to require fabrication. Okay. Now, what they want to be able to do is take, because I think they're trying to form a template in a way, in some respects,
Right.
that they want to be able to use off the shelf parts, And so I was kind of going down a road that maybe, that didn't match what their exact goal was. But I really think it would have been handy equipment because and my thing is that I don't think they're going to be able to get people like me to sort of, it's going to be hard for them to herd people like me, because for me, fabricating something is easy, right? That's nothing but a thing, right? And I don't know how I got off on that little tangent, but I think what I was trying to relate that to was that originally they had this list of parts and equipment and methods they wanted to use, and maybe that's changed a little bit.
Sorry, Tony,
Lou has joined.
Can I ask what they only if you're allowed to say what they wanted you to build such materials for, or such projects?
Well, this one particular, and it's, this part's public, it's on my channel. They were trying to develop it's dipole. They were trying to develop a tower for dipole FM transmitting antenna in a certain phase, like 100. There were 3 at 120 degree phasing, and so I have a feeling that's not the secret part. The secret part's probably the frequency, or whatever they were wanting to transmit. So what I thought was interesting was that it was a transmission tower, not a receiver.
But you've been, if I may ask, you've been asked to work on things that you cannot speak on at the moment, at least.
No, I haven't.
Okay, just wanted to make sure if you've been asked for.
And that's what I was trying to allude to earlier, is that I think I'm probably I like to broadcast things. I'm probably not the best person to have, if what you're trying to do is science that it gets filtered before it gets released to the public. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know. I keyed in on this transparent thing that Avi was talking about, how he wanted to be transparent with the science. But that doesn't mean that you show your test tubes and what you're putting in them as you go along, right? What you're sharing are the results of those tests.
Right. Have you met Avi or Chris?
No, I haven't. Okay. I have tried to get him on my channel for an interview, but you would think if I could get Lou, I could get Avi. But I'd say, well, Lou has made it a mission, right, to do what he's doing,
right?
And Avi's got science to do, so I get
it. Fair enough. Fair enough. Riel, did you want to jump in?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, Tony, really appreciate you sharing what you've been, sharing with us. I find that really interesting about how you're explaining that with Lou. He controls the energy of the group, and that's very, like, I think of like charisma, and it seems, I don't know what your thoughts are on like souls and higher conscious beings, or even I think you mentioned remote viewing, but it seems like he could be one of those individuals that is in the role that he's in because he has some sort of like divine spark with him. And like, I'm just reading his website, and it seems like, the story of this character, I'm not saying that they're actors, but when people are in intelligence agencies, it's, just kind of being aware of, like the narratives that are being
they have
shared.
A certain skill set. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I just find that very, very valuable. Like, and I like how you're, just giving him the opportunity to direct the flow of things and just kind of like, build off of it. But so the questions that I had for you is, how have you seen like the progression of technology? And I want to specifically ask about the weapons industry, as you have a lot of focus on guns. So have you seen a significant development in the sort of weapons that, I don't know if you study military technology or just what's available to the public, but has there been a progression that you've seen that makes you think that, wow, they have some information that not everybody is privy to?
I think the absence of it is more interesting than the presence of it. In other words, I remember, what was I, 7 years old, or I vaguely remember the moon landing, right? I remember seeing the black and white television all scratchy, I vaguely remember that. And if I look back from here to there, I ask myself, I've been to the Huntsville Space Station Museum, and I've seen the SR-71 Blackbird sitting there. This was 10 years ago. I mean, if you just think about it, what has happened? We went from the Kitty Hawk to the moon in, was it 70 years? How many years was it?
Yep.
And now we've been 70 more years. Crickets.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Why didn't we go back to the moon? Right.
Right. Why? I'm saying that I think personally that there's a lot of technology that hasn't been shared. And this is why, I wouldn't doubt it if some of the technology is ours. I don't have any knowledge of that. I haven't been told anything. I just get these vibes. I don't know if that really answered your question, but I think the absence of knowledge about those about military hardware is just as intriguing as, it's probably more intriguing than if we just had on every Saturday we get to see a video of the new hardware from the military. It's speculating on what it could be and what propulsion systems, and how we developed anti-gravity, which I think we have. So you know what I mean? Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. That actually is
Absolutely.
really telling. The absence is
Right.
more important than the presence of the technology. Totally.
Speaking of which, Tony, I wanted to share my screen with you here to point to a tweet you put out that I really liked what you said here with respects to the community of UFO Twitter. You said, so apparently when UFO Twitter gets bored, they start eating their own. I thought I would give Twitter a chance after ditching it for a while, but really it continues to be the cesspool of humanity where the hobby is apparently to attack other human beings for fun and views. And,
that's a bit strong, I realize.
But hey, I mean, you know what? At the end of the day, Tony, I gotta say, I'm in agreement, particularly what's been happening lately with respects to. I'm not trying to include myself in this, but I've had some, because of the show, I've started what we're doing here, death threats and things like that. But then I started seeing, for example, people like Thomas Fessler and even, of course, Lou and his family being personally attacked. I'm not speaking of so much the documentary, but more so about, again, the people that attacked everyone afterwards. And I just think, like, what do you see as somebody who's viewed these phases of excitement of UFOs, pop in and then it calms down again, come back, everyone's excited, then disappears again. What do you think is driving the hatred?
I don't know, but there's definitely more vitriol
right
now on the internet, right? Because I grew up with the onslaught of computers and the internet. It was so exciting. We would build PCs on our dining room table.
Right.
I remember having the external modem.
Right.
I remember, all these things I remember, and it was so exciting. Forums were cool. Talking to people on the internet was cool.
Right.
Everybody seemed to be. Everybody was just excited to have the internet. Right. And over time, it seems like it has evolved into tribes. There's a tribe that hates Bob Lazar. There's a tribe that worships Bob Lazar. Pick anybody, notable. Right. There is a tribe that, and the reason I call them tribes is because they attack each other for territory, for control, it seems like. And it's very disappointing to me. Sometimes, I'm building this little cabin in the woods, way out. And I'm going to move there. And I don't know if I'm going to connect the internet to it or not. I'm thinking about it. I probably would have to because of my work. I'll have to.
If I may ask, is this in the south of the US?
Yeah, I live in Tennessee.
Okay.
And I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee. But the property that I bought to move to is, out in the mountains.
Right. Beautiful.
And I have some videos on building I'm building a little tiny shack. I call it the Love Shack. And
one. Yeah, I've seen that.
I'm going to move into that, and then I've already designed, kind of designing another cabin to build. But the real estate market was so hot at the time, I was afraid our house was going to sell really fast, and I would be homeless basically. So anyway, that's a long story. I don't know how I got off on that.
Oh, no worries. I just did want to say though, because you are a builder and you've obviously, because I imagine, you've built homes and you have to sometimes sit on them to sell at the right time in the market, this and that. Do you see what's happening globally right now, as they call the Great Reset or whatever it is? I'm not saying that it is always some nefarious plan, but do you see what they did in 2008 with the housing market? You see them doing it again now, except much bigger?
The way I remember the housing crash crisis of 2008 was that there were a lot of loans that were given that failed
based off nothing.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, in the early 90s, I was a project manager for when I thought I wanted to be, working in office atmosphere instead of out in the outside.
Right.
I became this project manager for a nonprofit housing firm, and literally we did these HUD loans for people. We would make those loans. Basically, the motivation for this housing organization was to help poor people. It had good intentions, right? They wanted to bring up the housing stock of all of Tennessee or all of the Southeast. There were different housing organizations like this around the country. But what happened is a lot of those loans ended up, defaulting.
Right.
Not just ours. We're talking about nationwide.
The AAA tranche loans based off, because they were handing out these bonds based off of, there was no value underlying in them. Like there was no land to back it, right?
What they were doing on an individual basis was that they were giving out second and third mortgages so that these people could afford. So you might have a conventional loan that was only like 80% of the value, and then these nonprofits would come in and do make up the difference.
And that's why you had people with average every 9 to 5 jobs being able to put 6, 7, 8 properties under their name.
Right. So anyway, there became this big bubble that burst, and I remember driving boxes of loans.
Whoa.
To the HUD office in Knoxville, Tennessee. That was just our one nonprofit. I mean,
wow.
and see, among project managers, there was we would have competitions. Who could turn out the most projects in a month. And we looked at them as project managers. We looked at them as projects, right? We were helping people. We actually included renovation loans, right? We would actually renovate the house if it needed to be. So as a project manager, we were like, oh, let's get these things renovated. Let's get the loan closed, and we'll bundle them up, take them to HUD. I think they were like $203K. If you look up HUD, like $203K or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, those were a bunch of and this is my, I don't know this for a fact. This is my, since I was involved with a lot of that, that's my take on what happened. And I'm sure there are people who are much smarter, who are actually in the investment world, who can tell you exactly. But I think they were just a bunch of failed loans.
Fair enough. Now, just curious, before we get to Nills, I know he has a question for you. So you're a home builder, developer. If I may ask, how many years have you been doing this for?
Since 1978.
Whoa. Okay. So you are the perfect guy, in my opinion, to ask this question. I've recently been exploring the, I don't want to say it's a conspiracy per se, because I don't want to call it that, but of course, in building, my family, my background's Italian. I'm in plumbing, construction as well, things like that. But obviously, there's regulations and codes and things like that. But is there anything over your career of building, Tony, since the 70s till now that you noticed has been instituted that seemed abnormal? So, for example, like let's just say, when building a house, you need to use a certain I guess a type of material of sorts that you totally thought was nonsense or whatever. Anything like that over the years?
Well, the building industry itself has made a lot of improvements. I mean, just take something as simple as Tyvek house wrap. You know, we now understand, you know, how wall assemblies work, where dew points are. You know, we understand the science behind wall assemblies and ceiling and floor assemblies now, right? So
Right.
the building industry has kept up very well with technology. But what has not happened very well is government's role in regulating, you know, regulation. Like here locally in Chattanooga, now I have to tread lightly on this, right? Because
Yes. Yeah.
I am an old timer, and you know, but now, you know, with the onslaught of energy codes that were mandated,
Right.
right? They weren't. To me, you know, governments should offer incentives, maybe tax incentives. When they start mandating, to me, that's where I start kind of, you know, hey, can't we work out some kind of incentive for people to do things? But
Right.
you know, I don't know if I'm headed down the right road, but mainly regulation around energy, you know, energy consumption. And I understand it's a good thing, but I don't know if that answered your question.
Right. Basically, was there ever any type of regulation or code implemented over the years by by the government where you thought to yourself, "My God, that's ridiculous"?
Well, again, it's going to be mostly related to energy codes.
Got you.
You know,
Okay.
like now we have to have blower door tests on, and of course the thing about it is local municipalities have the option not to adopt these, right? Energy codes are something well, the code itself is adopted locally by local governments, right? In your county or your city or your,
Sure.
you know, so ours, Chattanooga being one of the most progressive cities in Tennessee, you know, decided that we have to have this energy code and we're going to force builders, you know. So now we have to have higher insulation values in the walls and the ceilings. We have to have blower door tests, you know. Yeah, they'll put a blower door on the front door and they'll create a vacuum, or they'll create pressure, I guess. And you know, if you don't pass that, you know,
Right.
you have to keep trying until you do. So okay. So I don't want people to think I'm not for energy conservation. I'm just you asked me
Right.
what the burdens are,
Right.
and those are the burdens that, because a lot of the times the contractor can't recoup. You know, I can't, when someone starts to buy the house, they don't really care if I had to do a blower door test, or, you know, honestly, they don't care how the R value of the insulation in the walls or the attic. They just know it looks great, and they, you know, they want a good price.
I'd like to, Tony, I'd like to thank you so much, sir, for that response. And I say this because I've recently been exploring, again, going back to that whole thing about sounding woo-woo or whatever. I've been exploring the, I guess you could say, proposal or theory out there that there are energy frequencies we cannot see that are being transmitted into a lot of people's homes. And I thank you so much for your answer, because interesting that you say that, in your opinion, at least, your concerns are with the energy regulations, because the modern day building materials of homes have to warrant that entrance of those frequencies, right? So that's where your work and my work actually connect. So I want to thank you so much for being able to answer that. But I do know that, sorry, you wanted to say something?
Well, no, I was just going to add to the whole smart home.
Sure, please.
A lot of the frequency stuff with new construction is related to smart homes, where your local power generation company can track things and help you manage your energy use. The problem is that these devices can be used for nefarious reasons.
Right.
It may be that your local energy, power generator is just trying to figure out ways to save energy and help you, but you know, that same equipment can be used for other, you know, other purposes.
Got
So
you.
it's, and I don't think there's privacy concerns there.
Are you, would you say those privacy concerns, are enough to prevent smart homes from going forward? You think we need to have more of a discussion about smart homes?
I don't think anything is going to stop technology from evolving.
Gotcha.
That's why people are afraid of artificial intelligence.
Right.
They think we're past that point of being able to tame it, and I don't know. I think it's just we're on a path and we're headed down that path. And, I think we're basically in the infancy now, but it won't be too long, maybe 10 years from now, to where, it's possible that, if you're cooling your home at 68 and the government wants it to be set at 72, then that's what it's going to be set. That's what your temperature of your thermostat is going to be set at. And it may be that it's done voluntarily at first, right? You may sign up for this voluntary program where your local power generator can help you.
That's how it starts.
Help you with your energy consumption.
Right.
And before you know it, you're like, gee, honey, the thermostat doesn't respond anymore.
Right. Right.
Or I'm only getting 3 ice trays of ice, today. I'm not getting, 6 I need. So
exactly. Nils, you wanted to jump in? You had a question for Tony?
Yes. So my question is like, when Lou says they don't know what's, like maneuvering those vehicles and what's inside them, like, do you believe him, or do you just think he's pushing in a narrative? Maybe.
I believe it's both. I believe Lou is he is an expert at the English language, and I'm not criticizing him for this. I'm actually giving him a compliment.
Right.
When he says we don't know what those things are, you can point to that thing in the video. No, I don't know what that thing is, but that doesn't mean I don't know what propulsion systems are available or what have been used in the past. Right. So I think there's ways around, and some people, and this is why people say, this is why people criticize him, is that they say, oh, he's just, he's what is it they call him? A tool.
Well, he is a tool.
Oh, you think you don't have high esteem for Lou?
Well, I mean, I don't believe a single word he's saying. And then also, I mean, he's a famous, what's the word? Misinformation? No, counterintelligence agent. So,
we need a certain number of those people for the security of countries. You honestly do need. You need to keep a country secure. You do need a certain number of people like Lou to make it work, to make that security system work. And this is where the fine line. This is where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. We need people who can create propaganda to offset the evil propaganda. We need good propaganda people. We need we need good intelligence to offset the bad. And
it's not
there is evil in this world. Okay. If you don't consider Putin, invading Ukraine evil, then you have kind of a very passive mindset. It's actually an evil act that he's doing to the people of Ukraine. So
it's like when he called it a special military operation versus invasion. It's like what you were saying about these guys and their words. They use it deliberately, carefully. Again, not a knock to Lou. I'm saying in general, that's what they do. That's the game.
Well, yeah, you need, if we didn't have people basically that were like Lou, who were doing their jobs, we would be in big trouble. And I'm just saying. Okay?
I'm in agreement with on that. That's why,
because you can bet that Putin has his Lou's. Okay, he has millions, he has thousands of Lou's. Okay, so I mean, so I have a hard time with this because I have people, family members that have served in the military. I know what they do. That's why I like Lou. I think he's a good guy. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's not elusive or that he doesn't use language that is dodgy. What would be the term? Where he can
Right. Yes. Right.
maneuver his words. Okay, but that's just the atmosphere. That's the reality that he finds himself in. Right.
Right.
You can't operate on that level of intelligence seeking and gathering and disseminating without having a conversation with someone that maybe sounds like you're a CIA operative. It's hard. I imagine it's kind of difficult. I know that's kind of being
No.
maybe too forgiving for Nills, but Nills, what's your accent? What is it?
I am full on German.
Okay.
I just wanted to also
I have some German friends there.
Just wanted to bring up as well, Tony, one of the things that we do here on the show is that we had, like, for example, I don't share necessarily the views that Riel does or the views that Nills does. So one of us here is not like speaking on behalf of the rest of us. But
and it's fine with me. I don't see. That's the funny part. People think because I've had Lou on twice that I'm some kind of I'm going to defend him. I'm not,
No, but
I'm just giving you the reasons why I think we have to have people like Lou, right? I'm not defending Lou. I'm not saying, oh, Lou's,
No.
I'm just saying that there's a place in this reality for people like Lou, and honestly, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I don't think most people want to know, or if they did know, would be very stable about it.
This is,
I think.
Sorry, I just wanted to say this is where I sort of stand. This is that fine line. And actually, I have debates with myself about this. Personally, I don't know where I stand, not necessarily with respects to Mr. Elizondo, but with respects to just those positions in general, like you said. And by the way, I thank you for your family and their service, but I know exactly what you mean, right? Because it's very difficult to discern. And it's very easy to just slap a label on somebody and associate, right? And that's no jab at you, Nills. I'm just saying in general. It's one of those things. So I see what you mean, Tony. Absolutely.
I actually have questions for Nills that I think, you know what I mean? I think it would be interesting to have a conversation with Nills just about his thoughts on that. You see, that's the way I am.
Sure.
I think objectivity is the most pure thing in this reality.
Yeah,
that's the most sincere trait a person can have.
I know we only have 15 minutes left. I know you have to head out in about 15 minutes, Tony, but if you would like to ask questions, by all means, if you'd like to do it like right now to spark a healthy conversation, sure.
No, I was just curious. The reason I asked, I noticed, Nills had an accent, and I was wondering about, because we are all affected by where we come from. Right. I mean, I was raised in the hills of Tennessee, so I'm going to have a different perspective than Nills because he was born in Europe, and you know what I mean. He's going to have a different perspective than I am, even about the Ukraine conflict. He may say, well, Russia has been warning us about NATO expansion for years, and we ignore it. You know what I mean. So I'm not saying that side of the story is warrants killing people, and I think that our side maintains the need to develop NATO countries for other reasons, not just Russia. So I think Putin is using that to a certain extent. But I understand. I don't condone it, but I understand I understand the words that are coming out of Putin's mouth. I don't agree with them. I understand them. And I think that's where you have to be careful. Understanding something is not agreeing with it.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you're sympathizing with it.
I'm not, thank you.
Yeah.
I was looking for the word sympathy or empathy.
Right. And that's the thing too, that speaks to a bigger picture of, again, our actions evil, but intentions aren't. It gets into that whole debate of morals and ethics. And I see exactly what you mean by that, Tony. Actually, that's one of the main reasons I started the channel, to have that sort of back and forth debate. Because I don't know myself where I stand on a lot of things, to be honest. But Nills, you wanted to jump in quick And then
Yes. So with that, back to the Lou thing, what you said about him, I completely respect your opinion on him, and of course he is necessary during those times, like to bring disclosure forward at least a little bit. But I'm just not satisfied with the whole disclosure spiel. That's why I'm not a fan of his. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I think we
But
all want Lou to do more, right? Everybody wants him to spill the beans. And I think some people, I'm not saying you, I'm saying some people are frustrated by his what he sees as a need to not disclose certain things. Well, some he can't, right? So I think that puts people, I think that's what frustrates people the most is that, oh, you say but you won't say, I use air quotes too much, don't I? I just realized that I'm watching myself.
I do it all the time myself.
Stop doing that. But you right, the thinking is he knows and he just won't tell, and it's frustrating. Now I don't know if that's part of what you go through, Nils, but otherwise he hasn't hurt me. Like you see, and I think a lot of people, it goes back to the tribalism. And again, Nils, I'm not talking at you. I think it goes back to the tribalism a bit, where the people who don't like Lou all follow each other on Twitter. They chit chat with each other. They develop reasons to dislike him. It's a genre of hate, and I don't understand how Lou has harmed them. Right? If you look at it on an individual basis, how has Lou harmed me?
it is absolutely a fair point. Well, I mean, like I said, they're just probably not satisfied with the entire process, right? Something that he just resembles, right? And that's not an easy job either. Yeah, I certainly don't want to trade with him, right? So
certainly don't want to what?
Sorry?
You don't want to what with him?
I don't want to trade roles with him. I don't.
No. He probably knows too many. He probably has. I don't know. If I was him, I'd probably have a hard time sleeping at night.
Well, not too much about that. It's just his job in general seems to be, like. Yeah, I think you have a firm understanding.
Here's what I do. I have these little things, things that go back and forth in my head. I'll say, do I really want to know? I'm moving to the woods. I'm finally living my dream of getting away from the city into the mountains. I want to have this cool life. Do I really want to worry about little gray men running around my little cabin? You know what I mean? And I think I put myself in the place of like mothers. The mothers want to have to start talking to their kids about aliens.
Right?
Is that? Are we ready for that? So I just think a lot of the people, probably 60-70% of the people, probably don't even want to know.
I would actually, it's interesting you say that, because there have been some people that I've been off the record, have been very humble to have met, and they said to me, like within the government, and at least, again, they could be, to be fair, they could be feeding me BS as well, to be fair, but they've said to me, Dave, we've been told that there were some classified briefings in Congress, and some of the congressmen and congresswomen were like, stop, I don't want it, like, this is too much for me, like, I just don't want to hear it. Like, I can't, I respectfully, I get it, but I can't handle it. So just stop briefing me, please. Yeah.
Because honestly, if those beings are not going to interrupt our reality, and if they don't in our lifetime, what are we doing to ourselves?
That's, oh man,
you know
that's a fantastic question. You hit that on the head 100%. That's actually what we partly explore on this show as well. But I know, Tony, in about 7-8 minutes you gotta jet. So I wanted to
I plan to have about 10 minutes of fudge factor there.
Oh, so. Thank you so much. Okay, cool. I wanted to let Riel ask a question.
Thanks. Yeah, so I do find it really interesting, the dichotomy between like Nils's perspective and then Tony, your perspective on on Lou Elizondo, and I think that there's a term in the UFO community and a lot of people that study conspiracies and all that, covert intelligence operations. It's like to black pill is to basically just say anybody affiliated with intelligence agencies or counterintelligence agencies are going to be proponents of basically controlling a narrative and disinformation. So for me, when I prefer to take the alternative media route with a lot of these things. And when I see somebody that's on CNN talking about something, it's like, okay, that's interesting that it's becoming public now, but I'm going to just not really pay much attention to what they're saying because it makes me feel like I'm trying there that my opinion or perspective is trying to be controlled. But as I'm just reading up on Lou Elizondo's website, and it's like, it seems like he's, a totally legitimate person and seems totally sincere. And I actually, ever since listening, I don't know if you're familiar with James Iandoli. He has a show, Engaging the Phenomenon, and he's also interviewed Lou Elizondo.
I've heard of the channel, but I didn't know that was his name.
Great guy,
Yes,
very nice guy.
Yeah.
very nice guy. And because of that interview where James Iandoli said, we need people like Lou. And I'm going to totally agree with you, Tony. It's like whether this individual is, representing any intelligence faction or not, it's the information that he's actually bringing that is making it easier to have these conversations with the average person that has no idea about what's going on. So, but so I do I sympathize with Nills being like, no, I just don't believe anything that they're saying because, there is definitely that angle where there are deep layers of information wars basically that are going on. So it's just kind of like, for me, it's like having a healthy skepticism, I suppose. But it's lovely to see when he's on a show like yours and a show like Engaging the Phenomenon that makes me feel a lot better about listening to that information and seeing the dialogue between him and people like you. And I would love to learn what the process he goes through to why he would want to join a channel and why he would have a discussion with you. So I really like that question. And
now some of it is just, his wife, Jennifer, she is the one who schedules all of the, and maybe she's the filter. Maybe she has some extrasensory, maybe she has amazing powers of perception. It also has to do with who got the contact information in the beginning. So I imagine it's a combined, who was the referral from,
Sure.
That kind of stuff. So, but in the end, I think Lou probably looked at my channel. He probably looked at, he probably did the whole thing, looked at my social media, looked at, which is fine. If you don't want that if you don't want your words to represent you, it's like Dave, you pulled up that tweet. I mean, now that I look at it a week later, it seems kind of harsh.
Well, with all respect, sir, I wasn't trying to hold you to it. I think you hit the nail on the head in my opinion.
I'm just saying that that tweet represents me now. Right. And if you don't want that, you see, so people would say, oh, well, Lou's looking at your, no, anybody can look at my tweets and see what my attitude is on life. You know what I mean? So I imagine that Lou probably does a little homework and decides, how he might handle somebody on a channel. And then he just puts all that information together and says, I want to do a certain number of small channels and mid-sized channels and big, and I want to go on Fox News.
Right.
And I want to hit the circuit.
That's I mean, if I ever had the chance to speak to him, I'd pick his brain on as much as the science aspect, truly the science. I mean, because I think it's very safe to say he's been privy, regardless of what anyone thinks of him or not, as an individual, as a former intel agent, all that. I'm curious about the science. If he's trying to bring the conversation forward, I just want to know what he knows about the science.
I think one thing we have to keep in mind is that if you think compartmentalization is a thing, it's a huge thing at the CIA.
Oh, right? I'm sure.
I mean, have you ever just seen field reports? I mean, they're just like little bits of information, and all that information is fed into the the quantum computer.
Yep.
And out spits the algorithm spits out a plan, right, or whatever. I mean, I'm exaggerating.
Right.
I'm just saying each individual field agent doesn't have the entire picture, doesn't have all of the information, right? So you could literally have Lou, or what's the other fellow's name who's making the circuit?
Chris Mellon.
Well, and the other CIA guy who's
John Ramirez.
Yeah, John Ramirez. I'm sorry, I forgot his name. those people have the information that they've been exposed to. They don't have all of the information available to the CIA.
It reminds me of what Staff Sergeant Clifford Stone said, may he rest in peace, with Project Camelot interview in 2007. Now, he was being asked about ET compartmentalization, but I think this applies in general. I'd like to ask Tony if you agree with this. Mr. Stone had said, you are told only what you need to know. However, because of just the nature of humans interacting, things like that, you do end up finding out more than you should. However, anybody who claims they know it all is lying, because very few, if any, do.
Yes, and I'm just thinking based on the normal process of gathering intelligence. Let's say you're dropped into the jungle of Southeast Asia. That's where you are. You don't know any, right? You have to collect data. You send back data. This guy's training these people, blah, blah, blah. You put it in your report, you send it back to the CIA.
Right.
Do you get to sit at the table and decide what happens to those terrorists in the jungle? No.
Right.
You just went to the jungle and discovered it.
And maybe
you sit back and report on it.
And maybe you were sent to the jungle under false pretenses, but you don't question it because that's your job.
Exactly. So I think people just have to keep an open mind. They just have to be objective. And I give people the benefit of the doubt. I have given all three of you the benefit of the doubt on everything you've told me today. I don't doubt anything you've told me.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
I just don't do that. I think if you're going to agree to go on a show, or you're going to agree to talk to somebody, or you're going to talk to somebody about somebody else in public, then, that's just the way
I couldn't agree
more.
How
I operate.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm very grateful and humbled that you came on. So we're gonna wrap it up, but before we do, would you like Tony to tell our audience where and how they can find you, your YouTube, your social media, if you'd like, or even your building business, your construction company?
I'm on ArtisanTony on YouTube, and that's good enough. Cool. All my social media is basically ArtisanTony, so you can find it under Instagram or Twitter or whatever.
Awesome.
Yeah, so.
Thank you so very much, sir.
I'm curious about you guys. Nils, do you have a YouTube channel?
He's so basically, if you Nills and Riel, Riel recently started his own channel. Nils doesn't, but I about at this point almost 2 years ago started the Generation Zed channel. We're on Generation Zed Podcast, ZED, on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. We cover everything from politics to science to esotericism to paranormal, UFO. That wasn't my intention originally, but it's been, so great that we've been able to do that. And we have on patreon.com/Generation Z is where I would argue is the real good content, only not because people have to pay, but mainly because YouTube would nick me for half the stuff I want to say publicly. So we offer three different tiers, $4, $8, $12 a month to support the show. We don't run ads. We're purely crowdfunded, and even people just coming to check out the channel would be super appreciative. So I can't thank you enough, sir, for coming on. Very humbled and honored, and that you spent this time with us, and thank you so much again.
Very grateful.